Hello, my fellow Whovians, and welcome to my latest Doctor Who review, where today I review Doctor Who The Robots of Death, starring Tom Baker and Louise Jameson once again. Okay, The Robots of Death. This is the fifth, sorry. It's the fifth and penultimate serial of season 14. And the basic plot of this story is as follows. The Fourth Doctor and Leela land aboard a sand miner, whose crew believe them to be responsible for a murder. As the crew continue to be picked off, the Doctor begins to suspect that the sand miner's robots may be responsible for the murders. And that's basically your premise of The Robots of Death. Okay, The Robots of Death. Well, this is a fantastic Doctor Who story. It is regarded as an absolute classic, and I can see why. It is a very, very excellent Doctor Who story. This story, again, resembles what I love about Doctor Who. The suspense, the horror, the tension. This story has all of that. It's 4 parts, it's very brisk, it moves along. It's not like the Face of Evil, where I felt that the Face of Evil had a bit of padding in the story. This moves along perfectly fine. I was never bored once. It held my interest. There are a lot of things to love about this story. First of all, the robots themselves. The robots themselves are terrific, and I really love the design of them. They almost look like they've got sort of slicked hair back, a bit like my hair, kind of, but a bit better than my hair. And the way they talk, I do not understand. You know, obviously, back in those days, in the 1970s, they had to have guys in suits, and they couldn't really do much to edit voiceovers or audios. But I like the voices of the robots. I think they're very creepy, and I like the way they go on this. I mean, they go on a murder spree. They just kill everyone, and they really are pretty scary, you know. And there are some POV shots, I guess I should say, point of view shots, where we get to see, like, from their eyes, the perspective of what they see. And it's kind of like the Daleks, when you see like the blue camera. It's almost like their eyes are blue and sometimes red, like you see different colours out of their eyes as they're walking around and trying to find people. It's really quite creepy. They try and kill, one of them tries to kill Leela, and she tries to use a knife, which doesn't work, and then she wraps a curtain around, impairing the vision and whatnot. I mean, that's a great sequence. There is one good robot which helps the Doctor. I think that's D84, I believe. I hope I've got that correct. D84. Who is an ally, who's one of the only good robots. The rest of them have all been reprogrammed. So, yeah, but they're very scary, and it's I mean, my friend Jack the Film Fanatic says that the story in the David Tennant era, The Voyage of the Damned, kind of rips this story off. I think that's a little bit of a harsh criticism, to be honest, Jack. I wouldn't say that. I would say, yeah, the design of the robots in that story definitely takes inspiration from this, but I wouldn't say it necessarily rips it off. I would say it's redesigned. You could perceive I mean, I'll talk about Voyage of the Damned properly when I actually review it, but I think in that story, you've got the robots being these heavenly hosts, and obviously the design of the face and the masks of the robots are very similar. So I can see where he's coming from, but I wouldn't say they ripped it off. I would say that's a homage, but that's Voyage of the Damned is a review for another day. But anyway, as for this story, I really like the supporting cast. They're a great group of people in the supporting cast. Uvanov, played by Russell Hunter, he's quite a good character. We do think that he's a little bit, like, he is accused of being the one who tampers with the robots at first, although obviously towards the end he does actually help the Doctor and Toos and Leela in the final fight against the robots. So, you know, he's a nice character in the end, and I like his performance very much, and he's like the commander or something in charge of this group. We got Toos, who is played by Pamela Salem, who is actually credited as the voice in the previous story of the Zoanon, the computer in The Face of Evil. She's very good. She's a very attractive lady, and she wears a great costume in this story. It takes her a while to believe the Doctor and to come around to the idea that these robots are actually killing people, but, you know, she does eventually trust the Doctor, and there's a great scene when she's in her cabin and then there's a robot that comes in and tries to back her into a corner. and she looks terrified. She really does. She really sells the fear, and that's what I love about Doctor Who, is that, you know, certain actors can really convey the fear of what they're up against, and the show is at its best when it can scare you. And this could be quite a scary story. I mean, not in terms of a horror aspect, but in terms of tension, it's very scary. It's a very tense Doctor Who story, and that's what I like about it. Of course, you've got other characters like Dask or slash Capel, played by Taron Capel, played by David Bailey. He turns out to be the villain of the story. The final sequence with him is good, although I do feel the ending of the story is a bit abrupt. That's my only criticism of the story. I do think the editing of that ending is very abrupt. It cuts away very quickly to the Doctor and Leela leaving, to the point where I had to ask my friend Jack about Tus and Ivanov, and what actually happened to them at the end of the story. I think the editing of that final climax could have been slowed down a bit. I think we could have just seen the Doctor and Leela say goodbye to the others before they left, but whatever. It's a very minor criticism. It doesn't affect the story that much. But that final scene is quite good when the Doctor and is captured by Taron, and then the robots start turning on him, and then they end up killing him, which is it's a very exciting story. There's a lot of death. The other cast members, Chubb, played by Rob Edwards, he's good. Borg and Cass and Powell and Zilda. There's a lot of characters in this story. But they are good. They are well done, and the robots are all well played, and the people inside the robots do a very, very good job physically with their performances. There's even a point when the Doctor actually puts his hat and scarf around one of them, and the other robot starts attacking that one, thinking that it's the Doctor, which is interesting. Speaking of which, Tom Baker is great in this story as the Doctor. He's very funny. There's a particularly funny moment when he gets out his jelly babies, and then he's like, "Would you like a jelly baby?" And then they smack it out of his hands, and then he's like, "Simple, thank you, would have sufficed." So that's quite nice that we get another jelly baby scene. But Tom Baker, once again, very great, very commanding in this story. It's nice to see him loosen up again, to see him have more fun. Obviously, the Deadly Assassin, he had to be quite serious in that story, understandably so. As for Leela, Louise Jameson in her second story as Leela, yes, she's very good. She's definitely, she adapts very quickly to the fact that she's just travelled in time, considering that she's just come from this tribe, of her home. She immediately is thrown into the situation, and she manages to cope with it rather well. It takes some companions a bit longer to adjust, but no, she seems to be quite with it, actually. And once again, she rocks the costume. I'm sorry, I have to say, what can I say? She was a very attractive young lady. I'm not going to apologise for that opinion. So yeah, and I think it's nice to see her building a rapport with the Doctor, like when he's talking to her about robophobia. I thought that was a really good scene. I also like the set design of this story. I think the set of the sand miner is really cool. I think that it all looks fantastic, and there's a great sequence. I think it's the end of part 2 where the Doctor and Leela have to cut the power, have to cut the machine or whatever to stop them crashing, and then they end up going under the ground and then going up again. That was a really well done sequence. It was really well directed. This story was directed by Michael Bryant, and he does a very good job directing this story. Chris Butcher writes the story. Again, Chris Butcher is a good writer, and he wrote a really... the story's not necessarily complicated or anything. There's not much meat to it, but it's classic Doctor Who. It's all you want. He's just written a story that's quite scary, tense, and it's not thought-provoking or anything. It's not like this story is a work of art, but it's a good story, and it's a really entertaining Doctor Who story. And it does what it needs to do. It doesn't need to be any more or any less than what it is, and it knows what it is. So, Chris Butcher, thumbs up from me. This is the 90th Doctor Who story. Only 10 more stories until we get to the 100th Doctor Who story. So the fact that the show is still at this quality is really quite something. 4 Doctors in, and I just have to tip my hat to the makers of the show. I mean, with 4 Doctors in, 14 seasons in, we're at the 90th story. The quality of the show really is great. I mean, yes, there have been a few duds along the way and a few bumps here and there, but generally speaking, it's all good. It's all good for me. Okay. And I also like the music of the story. That's my one other thing. I'll give them that, is that the music is very good. So this is a really fantastic Doctor Who story. Like I said, my one tiny complaint is I think the editing in the ending could have been a little bit better. I think it was a bit rushed. I think they rushed to edit the end of the story. I think it would have been nice to see a bit more of a drawn-out ending where the Doctor and Leela at least say goodbye to Tus and Ivanov in some way. Also, one other thing I have to mention, the costumes of this story. The costumes are a bit over the top. I think the costumes are quite outrageous, to be honest. They almost don't really fit at points. This is a really, really minor thing to complain about. This is like the pickiest of nits, the tiniest little thing. It doesn't affect the story. For me, it's just a bit like, when I look at the story, it just feels a bit mismatched, some of the costumes. They're a bit over the top. I know these people are after money, and you know they are particularly, I guess they're supposed to be wealthy people, but it just feels a bit over the top. That's all I'll say. But it's not anything really to complain about. Despite my 2 minor niggles, I am still going to give this story a 10 out of 10. And I know there's going to be a couple of people in the audience who are going to be happy with that rating. So, yes. Okay, that's that. So, the robots are deaf. That's my opinion. So, next time, we look at the season finale, which is the 91st Doctor Who story, The Talons of Weng Chiang, which is the end of Tom Baker's 3rd season as the Doctor. So, stay tuned for that, folks. And until next time, I'm Mr. TARDIS 11. See you soon.